How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hip Drop Podcast. Lucas and I are back, and the first week of the 2025 NFL season is in the books. One down, 22 to go. Teams that won this week are winning the Super Bowl. Teams that lost this week need to fire everybody and sell the team, such as the Chiefs. I kid. But anyways, we have a lot to talk about. It was a pretty eventful week one. Lucas and I will rehash in some of those games. Some teams that looked really good, some teams that looked really bad. And then we're going to give our picks for week two. And to update, I went 14-2 on my picks. My only misses were the Chiefs and the Dolphins. Lucas was right down the middle at 8-8, but it's a long way to go. We got 17 weeks left of this. And before we get into it, Lucas, how you doing on this Wednesday?
I am doing all right. I know I was 8-8, but if you look at a lot of my picks, I was very close on some of them. Like I had the Falcons over the Bucks. Falcons blew that game. I had the Jets over the Steelers. Jets blew that game. I had another close one. I had the Texans over the Rams. The Texans were right there. They were driving. I think there was a fourth one that I missed, but that was pretty close. But that's like I had the Ravens. Obviously, I had the Ravens over the Bills, but very close to a 12-4 week, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I'll have some weeks where I probably get more wins than I deserve, but I cannot wait. I can't wait to get through this episode because we're going to be talking about the Chiefs, I assume, in some capacity, and don't like that very much, but maybe we could cheer me up by talking about other teams.
Yes. Lucas and I did talk about the Chiefs quite a bit on Saturday after their rather embarrassing performance against the Chargers down in Sao Paulo. And they, of course, will be trying to get their revenge against the Eagles on Sunday in the rematch of the Super Bowl. And we'll get to that in our game picks. So Sunday Night Football, Bills-Ravens. Wow. It's week one, but I'm not certain we're going to see a better game than that this week. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were absolutely spectacular in that game. Josh Allen basically put the team on his back. He got some help, got some luck, thanks to Derrick Henry fumbling. But he had an absolutely heroic performance in the fourth quarter of that game, showing why he was the MVP of the league last year. And the Bills won a game that, honestly, they really had no business winning. It was 40-25 with less than 4 minutes left to go. They score a touchdown on a tip drill to Keon Coleman. They kick the extra point. Derrick Henry then fumbles. And then they score again on a Josh Allen quarterback sneak. They go for two. They don't get it. The Ravens can't get a first down. The Bills get it. They throw the pass to Keon Coleman. Jair Alexander makes a brutal mistake to tackle him because Coleman would have scored. It would have given Lamar some time. Matt Prater, signed off the couch, kicks the game winner, and the Bills win. So, Lucas, this game was just an absolute roller coaster. One of the best probably the best regular season game I've seen since the Rams and the Chiefs back in 2018, that Monday Night Classic. This game was just a battle of AFC heavyweights, the last two MVP winners, the two MVP finalists from last year, and they showed why. They completely showed out in this football game. Josh Allen throws for 397 yards, with 251 of those coming in the fourth quarter, which is more than half of the starting quarterbacks had in their entire game. Just an unbelievable performance. Lamar Jackson did Lamar Jackson things. Unlike their playoff matchup in January, this loss was not on him. So, Lucas, what are your thoughts on this game? Because, I thought it was some really explosive offense. The Ravens' defense, I thought, played fine for most of the game, but they just completely took their foot off the gas at the end. And we'll get to some further implications, but what's your biggest takeaway from this one?
To be honest, I don't have any big takeaways. I mean, because I think we kind of learned, what we knew going into the season, what kind of happened. Both offenses looked amazing. Both quarterbacks had stretches where they looked like they looked like MVPs. The Bills defense did not have a very solid performance, and the Ravens couldn't close. I don't really understand. I'm not saying I disagree in any way, but what did we learn from this game that we didn't know?
Yeah.
I think today was just an extreme of everything. Both offenses were excellent. Both defenses were horrendous at times. And then both teams seemingly tried to lose this game, with the Ravens ultimately being the more successful loser.
That's an interesting take on it because, look, these two teams, the clock is ticking because they're two teams that have not been over the hump yet. They're trying to get there this year. And given the way the Chiefs looked on Friday night, it looks like they may have the chance. The Bills, of course, coming out on top, and the Bills' upcoming schedule, like it's setting up perfectly for them to win 14, 15 games this year. But we also saw why in this game, like why these two teams just haven't gotten it done yet. For the Bills, it's their defense. Their defense, their front seven isn't awful. Their line, they have solid line. I'll say this: their linebackers are good, but on their defensive line, like besides Rousseau and Ed Oliver, really not much there. I mean, Benford's their safeties are horrendous. I mean, Cole Bishop is not an NFL starter. Neither is Dorian Strong. Neither is Damar Hamlin. They're just not that good enough. Not good enough. And a big catalyst of a lot of these Bills playoff losses against the Chiefs is their defense can't stop the Chiefs offense. Even years where the Chiefs offense has been less explosive, particularly the last 2 years. And for the Ravens, it's like, yeah, they have all the talent in the world. They dominate all the advanced metrics, but they just find ways to lose games. And that was on full display on Sunday night. So, like, if you're the Chiefs, not to like make this a Chiefs podcast, but you're like, okay, like we looked like crap on Friday, yet these two teams kind of look like they've been, even with how exciting that of a game that was. And I picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl. I'm sticking with it. And the Ravens showed like why, like even as dominant as they look at times, and there's gonna be stretches this year where they just blow teams out of the water. It just shows like you can't trust them in a big spot.
Exactly. Like the Bills should not have won that game. Like the Ravens, I think it was the DeAndre Hopkins touchdown that put them up by two. But whatever, two scores, but whatever.
It was a Derrick Henry run. Derrick Henry ran for 2 touchdowns. He had a long. Lamar made that ridiculous play on third down, if you remember, where he just ran backwards
and then ran like 75 yards.
Yeah, it was insane. And then Derrick Henry took it to the house on the next play. And then
But I was going to say, the Ravens should not have lost that game. We're not going to talk about the specific decisions, but the Bills, as what I respect the Bills, and I think they're a great team. They could win the Super Bowl. They had a lot of luck going their way. Like Jair Alexander, like I think it was Jair Alexander, but you mentioned him, who made that tackle on Keon Coleman by accident, which is the worst tackle ever. And then that tip pass touchdown that went right to Keon Coleman. A lot of that stuff is just luck, but at the same time, they're the ones that emerged victorious, so they deserve the credit.
Absolutely, 100%. And like if you're the Bills, you're ecstatic, even with the defensive concerns. If you're the Ravens, you're just like, holy hell. I mean, like how did we lose that football game? Another team that's asking the question of how we lost that football game is the Chicago Bears, who had a 17-6 lead against Lucas's hometown team, the Minnesota Vikings, on Monday Night Football, and they just completely choked it away. JJ McCarthy looked as bad as you could look for the first 3 quarters. And then after he threw that pick six to Nashawn Wright, a flip switched, and he just completely took that game over. He threw 2 touchdowns. He ran for another. He converted on a 2-point conversion to Adam Thielen, who they recently acquired. A huge win for the Vikings, a gutsy win. I was really impressed with McCarthy in this game. Like, look, he was very bad for, like I said, the first 3 quarters, but he is the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL. He's on the road in prime time, his first ever start, his first NFL game against what I think is probably a borderline top 10 defense, if not a flat out top 10 defense. And like he showed no quit, showed a lot of heart, showed a lot of mental toughness, and he deserves a lot of credit for this game. And Kevin O'Connell deserves a lot of credit as well. The Vikings are an exceptionally coached team. That was on full display last season, even though they kind of fell apart at the end. It shows like the fortitude that this team has and why some people are pretty high in them this year.
Yeah, I mean, that game was pretty similar to a lot of their 2022 games, where the 2022 Vikings were kind of like the 2024 Chiefs in the sense that they won a lot of close games. Like their close game record was insane. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, there was never a point, kind of like in the Bills-Ravens game, where like, oh, an avalanche happened in favor of Buffalo. It just seems like the Vikings like slowly got their way back into the game, like one drive at a time. They didn't panic. And I'm a JJ McCarthy guy. I think he's going to be really good. I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback at some point. Even at his worst, I didn't feel like the Vikings were out of it. I didn't feel like he was out of it. But like, because you have to think of it logically, he hadn't played a super competitive game probably since the national championship game at Michigan, because he played a little bit in a preseason game at the Raiders. He he didn't play that much in the preseason, if at all, this year. And it's first real NFL start in his hometown with a very raucous crowd. I don't really blame him for kind of having jitters. Patrick Mahomes has jitters when he opens the game, but this game was the opposite. Kind of like the inverse for each other for Caleb Williams and KJ McCarthy. Caleb Williams was excellent on the first drive, wolf on the other drives, pretty much after that. JJ McCarthy was rough until the fourth quarter. What that tells me is Caleb was awesome on scripted plays, but then when the game kind of got in its flow and things kind of changed, things got very different, and he was a much worse quarterback. That should be more concerning than just the loss itself. JJ McCarthy, once kind of the chips got on the table and hey, it's make or break, he definitely proved who he was. I think it kind of started with there's a play right before halftime, right after the Bears, I think, got a field goal, and the Vikings had maybe 25 seconds left, and JJ McCarthy made a great throw to his left, 25 yards down the field or 20 yards down the field to kind of help put them in field goal range, and the Vikings eventually made a kick. I thought that was kind of like the spark, what they needed. Even though they got a field goal, that's what they needed. And he just kind of, McCarthy showed he's not Sam Darnold. And because I don't know if Sam Darnold wins that game in that spot. He's still young. He still has a lot to improve on. But I think Vikings fans should be very excited because if the JJ McCarthy from the second half of that game on Monday shows up the rest of the year, this team is definitely going back to the playoffs and proving me wrong.
For sure. And I picked them to make the playoffs. I have been going 11-6. And you're right. I don't think Sam Darnold wins that game. I don't know if he comes back because Darnold last year, when things kind of went against him, kind of turtled a little bit. We saw in that the playoff game against the Rams, that final regular season game against the Lions. McCarthy did the opposite. And let's talk about Caleb Williams a little bit because you alluded to it. So for the season, we listed our top 5 quarterbacks that are under the most pressure this year. And you had Caleb Williams at number 1. I think I had him at 3 or 4. And last year was not spectacular. They go 5-12. They lose 10 games in a row. Williams' box score stats are okay, but his advanced numbers are not. And he's a guy who has a personality where if he's really good, he's really easy to root for. But if he's really bad, it's really easy to pile on. And it's a game where he kind of showed some of the same issues he did last year. Now, he did much better at avoiding sacks. He was only sacked once, and that sack was not really his fault. It was a protection breakdown. But the biggest issue was his accuracy. He was missing guys who were just wide open. His mechanics, which were never great at USC, were very wonky. His footwork was not good. And look, it's just he made some nice throws. He wasn't all bad. I'm not going to say he played like Tua did, who we'll get to later on, but he was underwhelming, and he was underwhelming last year. And Ben Johnson was visibly frustrated on the sidelines whenever the ESPN broadcast showed him. So, look, I'm not going to act like Caleb Williams' career is over and he's a bust because of the first game of his second year, but we're reaching a point where, it's kind of, we need to see something sooner rather than later, because even Bears fans are kind of, the alarm bells are going off a little bit with them.
Yeah, I remember we've had some people who visited. We knew some people who visited Bears camp and did not give glowing reviews of that offense and Ben Johnson in particular in some capacity. I was a big Caleb Williams guy coming out. I thought I kind of believed the generational hype, but now there are cracks in his game. He's not very good at processing and playing within structure. I think once kind of everything breaks down, that we kind of saw he escaped a lot of sacks on Monday, and he made some plays that kind of oh wow, that looked a little Mahomey. But yeah, it just like when the Vikings were able to control the play, he wasn't able to do it. A lot of the elite quarterbacks can just sit in the pocket for 3 seconds and make a throw. It seems like Caleb gets very uncomfortable very fast. You feel like it's almost like his processing clock is very sped up. And for most quarterbacks, it's about 3.5, 4 seconds until okay, something has to happen. Feels like for him, it's almost 2.5. Where he's almost he's bailing out of clean pockets. He's not seeing the fields correctly. He has as much arm talent as any quarterback in the NFL, save for maybe Allen, Mahomes, and the top 10 guys, but he has a lot of cracks in his game mentally. I think that can improve. I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I think if this continues through week 4 or 5, then I think it's time to raise some alarm bells.
Absolutely, for sure. And they play the Lions this week. We'll get to that game early on. The Lions looked honestly worse than the Bears did. The Bears thoroughly outplayed the Vikings for 40 minutes in that game, and they lost in Bears fashion, and it was an embarrassing loss, Fans booed them off the field because Bears fans are just frustrated with this team being so unsuccessful for so long. It's a long season, but like that's a game that like you need to win when you're up 17-6 in the fourth quarter, and Williams needs to be much better down the stretch. Like he missed guys who are wide open. The throw to DJ Moore is the one that's made the most rounds, but he also missed some other ones. He's got to be better, and if he's not better, they're not going to be in the playoffs again, especially with how tough that division is.
Yep.
All right, let's stay in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers, I would argue, had the most impressive performance of any team week one. They beat the Detroit Lions 27-13. Jordan Love doesn't throw for a ton of yardage, but he throws 2 touchdowns, one to Tucker Kraft, the other to Jaden Reed. But the biggest story was how well their defense played. Micah Parsons didn't play a ton, but he made his impacts when he got in there. He got a sack of Jared Goff late game. He got multiple pressures. He had one pressure that caused an interception. Edgerton Cooper played really well. They looked fast. They looked athletic. They had a lot of guys flying to the ball. Like, you picked them to go to the Super Bowl, and like they looked like every bit of a team that could be in Santa Clara at the end of the year. It was a very impressive performance against a team that a lot of people thought would be really good again. I personally didn't. I had the Lions missing the playoffs, but a team that was the 1 seed last year, a team that was 15-2 last year, and the Packers dominated that game. It was 27-6 where the Lions scored a garbage time touchdown. Look, I mean, some people think the bigger story is the Lions because like they looked like a shell of their former selves. I honestly think the bigger story is the Packers. I think they were extremely impressive in this game.
Yeah, I think this is a sign of things to come. The Packers were my pick to come out of the NFC for the Super Bowl when after the Parsons trade, but still when they weren't a consensus pick to come out like the Eagles or Detroit. I feel like that take is aging pretty well. The Chiefs pick, part of the pick might not be aging well, but I'll take my wins where I can take them. Even though the Packers dominated this game, it didn't feel like a true they dominated on the scoreboard. Like they were up 27-6 until like the very end when Isaac Tesla turned into prime Randy Moss or DeAndre Hopkins at the very end.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like the Packers were playing at an elite level, but they were dominating. And what I mean by that is I don't think that this Packers team has kind of peaked. And I still think they have a lot of room to improve, and they still dominated. To me, a lot of this game was Jared Goff. Woof. I think if there's one player you have to draw the most conclusions about, it's Jared Goff.
Yeah.
He was a mess in this game. Like
PFF has their
great PFF, if you just pull up his PFF grades overall, 45.5, which is really, really bad, but it's not rancid by any stretch. His grade when kept clean, which is when you're kept clean, you have no pressure. 63.1, that's atrocious when kept clean. That's basically league average. And when you're a guy making $50 million plus per year, you can't be that bad in a divisional game. He was 23-27 for 158, but his average depth at target was 3.7 yards. It pretty much just means he was throwing a bunch of screens and checkdowns. And he had his one interception was when he was technically clean. I know Parsons may have like caused it, but like he technically wasn't under pressure when he made that throw, so that's how they charted it. But when under pressure, man, disaster. 8-12 for 67 yards. He had a fumble. He had another dropped pick. Just did not look good in this game. I don't think he's going to be some awful quarterback, but I was not one of those people that viewed him as like a top 10 quarterback by any stretch. Like I kind of thought he was a product of Ben Johnson. The Lions offensive line lost some key pieces this offseason that like Frank Ragnow, who's from the next town over for me, kind of looking like the Lions might be missing the playoffs. And you were right. I'm not going to count him out. Dan Campbell's a good coach. He'll rally the troops, but I was saying in our preview episode that this team was going to start slow and that losing both coordinators mattered. Like even if Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson weren't the greatest coordinators ever, losing that much of your coaching staff when your head coach doesn't call plays for either side is going to be a huge problem, and we're seeing why right now.
Yeah, the Lions were a disaster. Honestly, I think of all like the good teams, and we're going to talk about a team that we thought was not good, so like they don't qualify for this. But of all the teams that like we thought were borderline playoff teams, like teams that were contenders last year, I think they easily had the worst performance. They were easily even more so than the Chiefs, because the Chiefs at least like were competitive and like it was a weird game. It was another country. And they still had a chance to win at the end. Like the Lions had no chance in this game, really at all. And Goff, yeah, it was rough. It was an ugly performance. He rarely threw the ball down the field at all. he threw one garbage. It wasn't even that his touchdown wasn't even A, it was in garbage time. B, it wasn't even that good of a throw. It was more of a great catch by the rookie receiver, Isaac Tesla. So, I mean, Goff's got to be a lot better. I mean, they play the Bears. It's like two quarterbacks that had pretty underwhelming week one performances, and it's a big game for both of them in week two. We'll make that prediction. We'll make a prediction on that later on. So, yeah, I mean, I think Packers, excellent performance. They made a statement, but the Lions, if you're a Lions fan, like I know it's week one, you don't analyze things too much, but there's valid reasons to be concerned. All right. Speaking of valid reasons to be concerned, more than concerned, actually. Sorry, I have a bit of an itch on my nose. The Miami Dolphins. Woof. My goodness. I only got 2 games wrong, and this was one of them. I had them going 5-12, but I had them going 5-12 this year. This is a team that had really weird energy throughout the offseason, and honestly, I just didn't think was that talented. But I thought, like, look, they've been good in week one under Mike McDaniel. The Colts have not won a week one game in over a decade. Like, I didn't think the Colts were that good. Like they'll get this win, they'll start 1-0, and then things will kind of fall apart. That did not happen. 33-8, and their only score was in garbage time. Tua was absolutely atrocious. He was 14 of 23 for 114 yards, one garbage time touchdown on a screen, and 2 awful interceptions. He also lost a fumble. I've never been a Tua guy, but I honestly think he's gotten worse. I think the injuries, especially the concussions, may have taken a toll. It was a rancid performance from Tua. Pretty much everybody on the Dolphins, including their coaching staff, and they kind of have shell company energy right now, where like they exist on paper, but like that's not really they don't really have any continuity. And I don't know how much longer Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer is going to be there. So Lucas, just how bad is this Dolphins team?
I think this team is cooked. Like they're not the least talented. They're not like a bottom 5 least talented team in the NFL. Like they have Tyreek Hill, who he might not be the best receiver in the NFL anymore, but he's still top 5 to 7. Jalen Waddle's one of the better number 2s. Tua, as much as we give him crap for, he's a capable NFL starter. He's not Spencer Rattler. He's not Anthony Richardson, ironically, in this game. He's capable, and their defensive line has guys on it, and their defense is actually better than people think. But at the same time, I think this team is just shot mentally. Like I think Mike McDaniel. I think a lot of the corny stuff he's been saying works when they're going well, because it's like, yay, it's kind of fun. He's like a cheerleader. Now that he seems like once a week he drops these weird quotes that are like, I think he means them as a joke, but they're not so funny when vibes are around your team.
It's not funny when you're not winning. It's not funny when you're losing by 33-8.
Yeah, and you lose by 25 points in your season opener. I didn't think this team I think this team had a slight chance to make the playoffs, but I think I said in our preview episode, this team had like one of the widest range of outcomes this season. I could have seen them being like a bottom 3 team in the league just because everything falls apart. Tua gets hurt. Zach Wilson is not the answer. Or this team just clicks on offense and just gets to the playoffs. Like I could have seen them winning anywhere between like 4 and like 11 games. I think we're going to be much closer to 4. The secondary is not good. The front seven's all right. Defensively, they're coached reasonably well, but at the same time, I think this team's quit. I think if they lose to the Patriots, this thing could get this train could fall off the rails very fast, even after 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Mike McDaniel, some of the quotes we all heard the quote of like, "Oh, it's a great day. We're in a great morning. We're another day closer to death at training camp." And then there was the quote of, "Well, on the bright side, it couldn't get any worse." Well, Mike, you go to Buffalo in 8 days. It might get worse. It might honestly get worse. And you know how like I asked this question in a group that we're in. You know how bad teams in their home games, fans show up with like paper bags of shame on their head? The Dolphins are my vote for like the first team to have fans wearing those at home games. They play the Ravens on a Thursday night football in Miami. It's a primetime game. I think we're gonna get shots of some bag heads at that game for the Dolphins fans. Like they're not good. They're atrocious, and I think they need to rebuild this whole thing because I just think it feels over. Alrighty, so we'll touch on one more thing from week one because this was a pretty entertaining back and forth game. The Steelers beat the Jets 34-32 on a 60-yard field goal by Chris Boswell. Jalen Ramsey jars the ball loose from Garrett Wilson to hold on to the win. But the big story from this one was the play of Aaron Rodgers. He threw 4 touchdowns. He threw for 244 yards, no picks, and a quarterback rating of over 130. Yet he had a PFF grade of 54. And look, Rodgers was talking big stuff after the game, like, oh, like I just wanted to beat everybody associated with the Jets, like that they thought I couldn't play anymore, blah, blah, blah. And like I thought Rodgers was fine in this game, but I think his touchdowns were all a little inflated. One of them was a little pop pass to Jonnu Smith. One of them was like a little, you know, flat out to the running to Jalen Warren, who was wide open by a million yards. Actually, all of his touchdown passes were to receivers who were pretty wide open. So,
Yeah.
Lucas, do you think this is sustainable for Rodgers? Because you picked this team to miss the playoffs, or was this just kind of a mirage? And we're going to look back in a few weeks and be like, yeah, he's the same guy he's been for the last few years.
I am in the camp that thinks he did not play that well in that game. I don't think he was rancid, but I think you kind of said it. All three of his 4 touchdowns had a combined average at the target of 10 yards combined, and then the one to Calvin Austin was wide open. Not to say those hurt him, but he's not going to get a ton of credit in anywhere but the box score. And then I think another stat I don't think you referenced, so apologize.
Oh, he should have thrown 2 picks. He had 2 dropped interceptions.
Yeah, I think one of them I don't think was his fault, so I'm not going to punish him for that. But the one I was going to reference, he had 30 pass attempts. 9 of them were on screens. Like, that's a rate of 26.5%. And for reference, the highest average rate last season was Tua at 20%. So much higher than the average. Not sure if you could still hear me because you're kind of frozen. Oh, no, you're not frozen. But
I'm good.
Yeah, I think even though I don't think he played that well, the vibes kind of looked good, where I think in later games he's going to play a lot better, even if they're not playing as bad as defenses. I think the Steelers could be a playoff team, even unless Rodgers can turn back to 2020 Rodgers, which it's harder to play at a higher level in the past 15 years than 2020 Aaron Rodgers. Unless he gets back to that level, this is not going to be a Super Bowl team. I still think that defense has holes. Justin Fields was awesome, but like at the same time, not exactly a great look for the Steelers defense until that Jalen Ramsey pass breakup at the end. At the same time, as I've said before, I think the Steelers are going to be a playoff team. If I had to amend my predictions, I would have them making it. Probably going to swap them out for the Patriots if I had to be honest. But
yeah, the Patriots, that was unimpressive.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say Aaron Rodgers is back to his MVP form. I need to see a little bit more. I thought aesthetically it looked nice, but I don't think when you look at the substance, look under the hood, it was that great of a performance. I don't think he's washed. He's going to be a top 15 quarterback this year, maybe top 10 if the Steelers are lucky. But I think the Steelers team will be back in the playoffs. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they're a threat to win multiple playoff games.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp. And look, the Jets played hard in this game. Honestly, by many metrics, the Jets outplayed the Steelers in this one. But they did Jets things. They fumbled a kickoff return. They allowed that ridiculous catch by DK Metcalf, and they lost the game ultimately. But they looked more buttoned up under Aaron Glenn. All right, that about wraps up for the biggest week 1 storylines. We are going to now give our predictions for week 2. Week 2 kicks off tomorrow night between the Packers and the Commanders. That was for Thursday Night Football, 2 NFC contenders. And then late. So I'll actually go first with my picks. We'll see if I can match what I did last week. It'd be pretty impressive if I did. So Packers, Commanders tomorrow night. I'm going to take the Packers. They're at home. I think they're the better team. I think they're the more talented team. And I think they come away with the win. Then Ravens, Browns. The Ravens, I think, bounce back at home. They beat a pretty bad Browns team. Even though the Browns were okay week 1, the Ravens, I think, definitely win this game. And then you have Bengals, Jaguars, 2 1-0 teams. I'm going to take the Bengals in this one. I don't feel super confident about it, but I don't know. I just think I have no rationale for this one because I don't know what to think of either one of these 2 teams, but I'll just take the Bengals because I thought higher of them going into the year. Cowboys, Giants, I'm going to take the Cowboys. The Giants couldn't score a touchdown in the opening week. They're sticking with Russell Wilson. So, like, the Cowboys, I think, will take advantage of that. Lions, Bears, I'm going to take the Lions. I think they bounce back at home from that very underwhelming performance in Green Bay. Dolphins, Patriots, I'm going to take the Patriots. I don't know if I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win many more games this year, if any. Saints, Niners, a big storyline. Brock Purdy likely not playing in this game. Actually confirmed not playing in this game. So Mac Jones will get the start. With that being said, I am going to take the Niners because I picked the Saints to go 0-17, and I'm sticking with it. Jets, Bills, Bills. I think the Jets will be somewhat competitive, but I think the Bills, they're obviously the far superior team, and they'll pull away late. Steelers, Seahawks. I think the Steelers win this one at home. The Seahawks offense was a mess against San Francisco. I think Pittsburgh's defense will bounce back and get some force Sam Darnold into some mistakes in this one. Titans, Rams. I'll take the Rams. Just the far better team. The Titans, like I said, I don't know if I see many wins for that team this year. And then the afternoon slate, Cardinals, Panthers. My upset pick of the week, I'm actually going to take the Panthers in this one. The Panthers looked like absolute hell in week 1, but the Cardinals weren't exactly impressive either. They won, but they only beat the Saints by 7 points. I think the Panthers steal this one on the road. Colts, Broncos. I'm going to go with the Colts to start 2-0. The Broncos, barely squeaked by the Titans. I think Lou Anarumo is going to give some problems to Bo Nix, who played very poorly against Tennessee. I think Shane Steichen will scheme up some easy throws for Daniel Jones, and the Colts take care of business. And then, of course, Chiefs, Eagles, probably the biggest game this week, the Super Bowl rematch on Fox. I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one. The Chiefs in their current state, I just don't see it in this one, especially without Xavier Worthy. Now, I do think the Chiefs will ultimately be fine, but I do have them starting 0-2, which will have some Chiefs fans panicking because it's obviously unfamiliar territory. Sunday Night Football, Vikings, Falcons. I'm going to go with the Vikings at home. I think they take care of business. They have the far better coaching staff. They have the better roster. They're coming off a huge win Monday night, and they get this victory. And we have the dreaded Monday night doubleheader, which I just think is the worst thing ever. I think they're so annoying and unnecessary, but I digress. Texans, Bucks. I'm going to go with the Bucks. The Texans were a mess on offense against the Rams. Actually, scratch that. I'm going to go with the Texans. I think they bounce back and win at home. The Bucks weren't exactly amazing against Atlanta in the opening win. They needed a missed field goal to win that one. I think the Texans bounce back and get their first win. And then the last game, Raiders, Chargers. I'm going to go with the Chargers in this one to beat the Raiders. I think they have the more continuity. They have the better quarterback, and I think they start 2-0. So, all right, Lucas, take the floor.
Excellent. I forgot where you had Ravens Browns in the order, but I'm going to try and go in the same order you did. But Ravens Browns.
I'm just looking at the NFL's schedule on their website. That's the order.
No, I was talking about literally the order in which you picked the games, like whether it was the 6th game you picked or whatever. So I'm going to have it 10.
Okay.
Which game did okay, I'll just go through my first game, Packers, Commanders. I'm going to go with the Packers to win and cover the 3.5. Again, this is Thursday night. Packers might be still riding that high from beating the Lions, but I'm still going to take the Commanders. Next game, Jaguars, Bengals. I think we only differ on 3 games this week from my count, maybe 4th if I missed one. This one's one of them. I'm going to take the Jaguars. The Bengals defense may have played well, but they're playing a rancid offense. The Jaguars can move the ball, and I think their offensive line is better than people give it credit for. So I don't think Trey Hendrickson nor Shamar Stewart are going to get much pressure on Lawrence. I think Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter will tear up that secondary. Then Giants, Cowboys. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win, Giants to cover the 6 points. I think maybe the Cowboys peaked in week 1, or not peaked, but they came out firing, especially on offense. I don't know if that'll be the case, but maybe CeeDee Lamb has a bounce back game. Next one, Lions, Bears. I'm going to pick the Lions to win and win by 5, cover the 4.5. I don't like the vibes from the Bears. I think the Lions will hammer them, especially after losing to the Packers. Patriots, Dolphins, same line of thinking as you. Patriots are going to win this game, and then Dolphins are going to collapse. 49ers, Saints. I don't care if it's Mac Jones. I think he's an underrated backup. Give me the Niners to win and cover the 4.5. Then I have Jets, Bills. I think the Jets are going to keep it close, but the Bills are going to win. I still think there are problems with this Bills defense, and I think Justin Fields maybe could still take advantage of it to an extent, but I could see Justin Fields getting back to earth and this game being a 30-point game after the 3rd quarter. Next game, Steelers, Seahawks. Steelers are going to win. I'm going to minus 3.5. I think TJ Watt will get to Sam Darnold. Titans, Rams. I'm going to take the Titans to keep it close, but Rams are going to win nonetheless. Then Browns, Ravens. I think the Browns will keep it close to an extent within 12.5, but the Ravens are still going to win. Panthers, Cardinals. I'm going to take the Panthers to keep it close, but give me the Cardinals to win. I think this Cardinals team is better than what they showed in week 1 against the Saints, but I'm gonna take the Panthers to cover 6.5. So week 12, I'm gonna take the Colts to win and cover. I think the Colts are just right now. I think they were the more impressive team in week 1, playing about the same caliber of team. Dolphins and Titans might be the same tier. Give me the Colts to win. They're at home. Then Eagles Chiefs. I'm gonna take the Eagles as well. I think I would have been more comfortable picking the Eagles had the Chiefs beat the Chargers and look shaky, but I think the Chiefs have never lost 3 consecutive games in the Patrick Mahomes era, even across multiple seasons. Maybe that starts this year, but I'm going to take the Eagles. Xavier Worthy, Norrishy Rice are going to play, but I think this might be an over my dead body game for Patrick Mahomes. Like, I am not going to get embarrassed again, especially on home field. Then Falcons, Vikings. Vikings to win, but I think the Falcons will keep it close. Maybe it's like a 28-24 type of game. Then Texans, Bucks. I had the Texans, so this was going to be one of our disagreements until you switch sides. I think the Texans are going to win at home. Buccaneers, I don't think look that good despite winning. Texans, I think, look poor, but I think they're better than that. I think they'll bounce back. Final game, Raiders, Chargers. Another disagreement. I'm going to take the Raiders. I think the Chargers might be a little full of themselves. I think that Friday night game was more about the Chiefs kind of crapping the bed. Well, I think the Raiders have a capable team that I think can score points, and I think the Chargers come back down to earth a little bit, and the Raiders surprisingly are in first place after 2 weeks, and they get the win.
Alrighty, so to recap, we both take the Packers, we both took the Ravens. So differentiation, I took the Bengals, you took the Jags. We both take the Cowboys, we both took the Lions, we both took the Dolphins, we both took the Patriots. We both took the Niners, both take the Bills, both take the Steelers. Both go with the Rams. Differentiation, I take the Panthers. In the upset, you take the Cardinals. We both went with the Colts. We both went with the Eagles. Both went with the Vikings. Both took the Texans. And then I took the Chargers. You take the Raiders. So like I said, we had a bunch of disagreements last week. Only 3 this week. We'll see how we do. All right, Lucas, do you have any parting thoughts before we go?
I do not. Let's hope the Chiefs don't start on 2, but that's probably down. That's probably in their future.
Yep. Well, 0-2 is not a death knell. They have the Giants on deck. Like I said, it's a long season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Lucas and I will be back next week to recap week 2, and look ahead to week 3. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon.